So, dear student, you can prepare the API or web service using Visual Basic. Today in today's lecture, we are going to study how we can prepare the API using Visual Basic .NET. Although you can use any other language, you can use the Java, Oracle, PHP, or any other. I suggest you should always use the language in which you are good. You have the good command on that language. So I'm just giving the name KU API for employee. KU API, just only KU, Kardan University API. We have already the same name, so give a name Kardan API 2. Here you have to right click and add the web service. I'm going to add here the web service. Right click, add, and find here the web service. So this one, web service dot ASMX. I'm just giving the name get all employees web service. So we have this two files. One is a .vb file, one is .asmx file. I'm going to add here the one more file which is class for the employee, because we want to store the data of employee. So I'm just okay. I have just added here the one class. What are the different information you want to store? So I want to store employee ID, decimal, employee name as a string, salary, narrative as a string, salary as decimal, and rating as decimal. Now to get the values of these data items, we will define the properties. Public property, employee ID as decimal, and property. Use here get and press, just write down the get and press enter. You will automatically have set area. So get will return the value of employee ID, and set will set the value for employee ID. So I'm just writing here employee. Now we need for the employee name. So public property employee name as string, and property get and return underscore employee name underscore employee name equal to value. So I will just copy and paste for rest. So because we have one for narrative, so I'm just adding here for narrative. So here narrative, and here as well narrative, and here as well narrative. Now we need the two properties for salaries and rating control. So just I'm writing here salary. So salary and salary. One more time, I'm just pasting here for rating. So rating and rating. Now you need to create the one table in SQL Server. So I'm just opening the one blank instance of SQL Server. So you can just see the server name. By default I'm just writing here dot, and the authentication I'm just using here window authentication and connect. So let's create the one table. I'm just creating here the one database by the name of testdb or testdb1. So let's create one table within this particular SQL Server database. Employee ID, employee name, narrative, salary, and rating. Let's save this table. Employee is the name of table. Open this particular table. First you have to refresh and then open it. I'm going to open and save the few records here. 1 2 3 4 5. So I'm just writing here Mubin and Nulla. Narrative we have done is BCS from Kardan University. So same for all. Salary $12,000, $8,000, $9,000, $6,500, $5,500. Next one is Farhad, Yasir, Imran, and Noman. Rating is 4.5, 4.8, 4.6, 5.0, 4.3. So here we have the rating. And now let's go back and connect with the SQL Server. I'm changing the name. Instance of function, I need here the procedure. So for procedure we are using sub. What is the difference between the procedure and sub? Procedure will perform action and will not return value. Function will perform value and will return value. So get employees record, get all employees employee record. This is the name. Now if I want to get the value from SQL Server, so we need to import the library system.data.sql client and declare here the objects dimc and add SQL connection. Connection need three information. It's need number one server name. In our case the default server is dot. And then secondly we need here database name. We need to provide the database name. And number third, authentication. So server, I'm writing here dot, which means that local server. And database or initial catalog equal to testdb1 and integrated security equal to, which means that Windows security, use the Windows security. So just use here the new to and do not. Okay, now before doing anything you have to open the connection. So I'm writing here cfcn.state equal close, then open the connection. Use the try catch. If there is any error within this code, so cache that particular error. Now we need to store the query. I'm writing here declaring the one more object cmd as SQL command. Select employee ID, employee name, comma, narrative, comma, salary, comma, rating from employee. So this is what we need, and this should be run against cn as new. Now store your data inside the memory object. So for storing data I'm using here SQL data reader, Data reader is a memory object which can hold your complete table inside the memory depending on memory size. So cmd.execute is execute reader. It will execute this query and will store all of your data inside the DR, and you can read that data but you cannot modify that data. So data you have stored inside the data reader, you can read it but you cannot modify it. Keep this in your mind. So I need to loop through all the records. So while dr.read, it means that until you can read, until you have record, by default like dr.read equal false. So it means that if there is a record, so perform the action. Now if I'm going to declare here the one object, for example the emp as new employee. So how many employee record we can store? We can store definitely one employee record. If I want to store the multiple employee record, then I need to make the list. To make the list here in Visual Basic, I need to use here as new and something like this, as new list of employee. So this way now you have created the list and you can store the multiple employees within this particular object. So I'm just changing the name employee list. Now employee list dot add, which is the employee type. One thing we just forget, which is the constructor. So we need to declare here the constructor. In Visual Basic we are using the new word to declare the constructor. I'm writing here employee id as decimal. One thing I just forget, that's sub, comma, by while employee name as string, by while narrative as string, by while salary as string as decimal, by while rating as decimal, and ends up. Underscore employee ID equal to employee ID. Underscore employee name, which is the local data item. I'm going to initialize the local data item. Narrative equal to narrative. Underscore salary equal to salary. Underscore rating equal to rating. Now done. So just use here add employee as new employee and pass the data. So the data we have inside the DR. So what is the employee ID? It's decimal. So I'm writing here dr dot get decimal employee ID, or I suggest you should use here the index, which is 0. dr dot get string, which is 1, which is name. dr dot get string 1. dr dot get decimal, which is salary. dr dot get decimal 4. So now this way we have prepared the list. One final thing is left. We need to convert into JavaScript object notation JSON. So converting data into JSON. For this we need to import the library. I'm writing here import system dot web dot script dot serialization. Now here we need the conversion. I'm declaring here JS as new JavaScript serialization, and context dot response dot write and convert the data JS dot serialize. Which data? Employee list data, our data. Finally we are done. So just refresh and you can just see how many record do we have in employee table. We have 5 records. So we have just play our application, and this is the web service, and you can just see the name. What is the function name? Get all employee record. Keep in mind. So now get all employee record is here. Click here and invoke. If there is no error, it will get there. So now here we have the data in JSON format. Record number 1 from 1, starting from 1 to record number 5. Now if you are going to add the 2 more record, 6, 7 and 6, 7, A and B, and test, salary 3,000, 3,000, 2,000, rating 4 and 3, and you have to just refresh again your and invoke again, and this time you can just see you will have the two more record as well. So this way you can convert your data into JSON. So this data is basically accessible through the mobile application. You cannot, I strongly do not recommend to directly access this data. Now you have the web service. So if someone hack your data, if someone hack your application, he cannot hack your database directly, because data we are getting through the web service, and the web service will exist on the server side, not on the client side.